Right, let's be honest, everyone doesn't like burpees, but if you're doing high rocks, you need to do 80 meters of burpee broad jumps. So, luckily for you, today I'm going to be telling you how to make burpee broad jumps that little bit easier. Right, so the first thing you need to think about before anything is, can you actually do a burpee? Now, that sounds pretty simple, but you're making your life so much harder if you can't move efficiently or if your technique's bad on burpees. So what we need to do is get this nailed first. Now, as you might know, if you've watched any video on high rocks burpees before, there's two different techniques we can use when we're doing our burpee broad jumps. The first one is the step up, and the second one is the jump up, okay? Now, both require you to drop your chest to the floor. This is what I recommend doing as quickly as possible. You don't want to be lowering yourself down like you're doing a press up. It doesn't need to be controlled. Just literally throw your chest to the floor as quickly as possible, because then there's less tension on the muscles, less fatigue, okay? Then, this is where it gets a little bit different. Step up requires a slightly different, we'll say, skill set compared to the jump up. Because if I'm stepping up, I really want to be stepping as close to my hands as possible, okay? I can't go past them, but I'm gonna need better mobility for this, because especially guys that run, we really struggle with mobility sometimes. So one recommendation is that if you're gonna go for the step up approach, making sure that you warm up, maybe things like your runner's lunge, throwing some rotations, okay? Making sure you're primed and you've done some mobilizing. You know what works for you. Make sure you've done that before you try these, okay? When do we use the step up? Now, the step up, I would usually use when I'm doing a singles, and I would usually do the jump up for doubles. Why? Jumping is faster, okay? Jumping from the floor is faster, but it's more taxing. In doubles, I only have 40 meters to do because I'm gonna split it in half with my partner. In singles, it's nowhere to hide. I've got to do it all myself, and I might cry at least once or twice as I'm doing it. So I'm gonna step up. Even if it means it's a bit slower, it might take less out of you. Right, one little technique point that you're gonna need if you're jumping up is gonna be that you wanna make sure that when you're jumping up from the burpee, the balls of your feet are what lands on the floor, because that's where I'm gonna feel nice and springy, okay? You can't hold that position too long because your body wants to move forward, okay? So that's the position you want to be hitting if you're using the jump up technique. For both techniques, when you rest, don't rest by standing up, okay? I don't want to be seeing you stand up all the way any point on your burpee broad jumps. You should either be resting. If you're resting at the top, then rest with your hands on the knees, or rest on your knees, or just lying on the floor like a mess, okay? Either is fine. You don't need to stand up all the way at any point, so don't do that. You're just gonna waste energy. So now we know how to do burpees and strategy, technique, efficiency, etc. What we need to do is actually start training for them. Now, as with any of the stations or any skill at all, it's a good idea to get used to these in isolation before we start adding them into running. So if you're doing singles, you've 80 meters of burpee broad jumps to do. Simply start by doing, let's go, 4 sets of 20 meters, okay? That'll accumulate your 80 meters, but you should be able to have your form perfect. It should be unbroken because you're gonna get a minute or so rest in between. Then as we progress it, we can go over it. So we'll do 5 or 6 by 20 meters, and then we can start doing, let's say, 4 30 meters, and then, I don't know, 3 40, etc. You know, you're getting my drift, okay? So we can increase distance, we can reduce rest, we can manipulate that to make it harder week on week. Okay, so now we've trained our burpees in isolation. We've hopefully been doing some mobility work if needed. We know what works for us. Now it's time to start throwing it in to that mixed modal setting, like a high rocks workout, okay? How should you start by doing this? Well, if I'm prioritizing burpee broad jumps, I want to do 2 things. I want to make sure that I can perform them well after I've just been running, and I want to make sure that I can come out of the burpee broad jumps into my run and resume my race as intended. So what you want to do is sandwich burpee broad jumps between, let's say it could be literally a kilometer run, 80 meter burpee broad jumps, kilometer run, or I think I like to do 400 meter run, let's say 40 meter burpees, 400 meter run, 40 meter burpees, and then repeat that. You can make the burpees longer, the run longer. You can start throwing in other stations such as your ski or whatever. Ski is a good one to throw in because that's going to fatigue your midline. It's almost opposite to burpees in a way. So that's going to complement it well. As will sled push, because your heart rate is going to be jacked up by the sled push. That's going to really challenge you. So once you're more confident to throw these in too. But it's important to start throwing the burpees into the mixed modal setting now. because we need to be able to do them compromised, we need to be able to do them efficiently, and you need to be able to hit the run afterwards, okay? So that is your next stage for your burpees. So in this video, we've covered how to actually do a burpee, how to do it efficiently, what strategy you should use, what burpee technique you should use and when. We've then briefly gone through how to isolate these and get better at burpees. And then we've decided how we're going to go through a mixed modal setting like you would in a high rocks, okay? Obviously, just having a really good base of endurance aerobic fitness is going to be really beneficial here. So make sure you're doing your aerobic runs and endurance sessions alongside your burpee training. But if you take all of this advice and put it together, I can guarantee you'll get a PB next time you do burpee board jump at high rocks. So with that, I'm going to see you in the next video.